So what's good, man?
Not doing good, man. Had a little trouble there the start of the year, just had a lot of mania and stuff. But aside from that, everything's been going good, man. This year for or this month for Doom releases, I got like 40 things on my Doom chart. And I'm sitting there like I only have 25 spaces. I don't know what to do because there's so much good stuff coming out.
Yeah, I actually I've been getting all these emails from bands like, "Hey man, can you check our stuff out?" So I'm like, "Yeah, okay." But then I haven't checked out like maybe only three new albums so far this year because like I've just been so backlogged.
Oh
But
yeah, a lot of people are like that right now.
yeah, what do you have coming up that's like on your list that I should check out for
Rainbows
this?
Are Free in March, Pyres in March, which is a lot like High on Fire, kind of Cobranoid type stuff.
Okay.
And just keep it on the big labels, especially Heavy Psych and Ripple and Magnetic Eye. Like there's all killer stuff coming out on everything. But right now, definitely Pyres. Clastos next month is a big one. It's another for people who are into High on Fire and stuff. They're gonna like that a lot.
Okay. My
And
neighbor, he does this with me. He's the Dr. Destruction
yeah,
on Instagram. He's like he loves High on Fire and that kind of stuff, so I'll make sure to send it over to him.
Clastos and Pyres. Pyres is coming out on Hyperthrall. I think that's their first one of the year. And
I'm
I'm always
writing it
a
down.
fan of well, I'm always a big fan of them what Hyperthrall puts out, but especially something like High on Fire, which is what got me into the Doom side of things initially in the first place. If you don't really count the Meldons and stuff.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess they're more like sludge, I
Yeah,
guess.
I
But
mean it's all related. It's all Sludge is related to Heavy Psych is related to traditional Doom. I guess you could say the first one would be like Saint Vitus in '85.
yeah.
This I mean you can go all the way back to Helter Skelter when the Beatles wrote that and call that
Yeah.
metal if you want to. I mean there's so many ways to link it all throughout history.
And that's the problem I have like doing this because there's so many bands nowadays that are doing like there might be some psych, might be some doom, might be some and it's great. I love the mixing and the melding of everything together. It's just so great.
Right. Yeah, I love it too. Especially when you get something real weird like that Les Elefantes album that came out last year, or yeah, early 2024. It was like jazz stoner doom. It was
Yeah.
wild. Yeah.
Yeah. I just started getting into jazz maybe like 2 years ago. I met this old black dude I work with, and he's been just pumping me with jazz.
Oh,
And
cool.
so now like I started getting into like some other bands like the New Blood Incantation that has more of like a free form, like non-traditional flow. And that wasn't for me because it was like way too progressive metal, but I really like how it's going.
I dug that Blood Incantation album a lot, and I'd love to hear that in a live setting, but it was compressed. Like I can't.
Yeah.
It's just overly compressed the whole album, but the songs itself, I'm sitting there listening to it. I'm like, the people who made this are so much smarter than so much smarter than me. There's no way I could imagine putting something like that together and playing in time to it, no less.
Yeah, and for me, I think like the two genres of music I don't like are like hair metal and like that I don't know what you call it. I always called it white people rock in the 80s. Like
Yeah, same. I'm not huge into that either.
yeah, and so like I thought they might have leaned into like the lighter stuff a little too much for my tastes. But I really like that they went for it and they went all the way in. Like I really respect that.
Yeah, it's just this in the songwriting, the fact that they got that fella from Tangerine Dream to come in and do electronics for him, that was like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
see something like that kind of mixing. I mean, just the like you said, the fact that they went for it, the respect, to throw their weight behind it, I love that. Like Uncle Acid did that last year. They came out with an album that was like a
Yeah.
complete left field, and it rubbed some people the wrong way. I loved it just because it was like, man, the guts it took to completely to just follow what you wanted to do at this point. That was cool, man.
Yeah, because you're not like I feel so many bands like Metallica, they just go through the blueprint, verse, chorus, verse, like
Yeah.
and it's so nice to see people inventing new stuff and try and like I feel torn because like 75% of me is like, oh man, I love that you went for it. But 25% of me is like, that's not my style of music at all. But I love the fact that you took the risk.
Right,
Yeah.
right, and just the guts it takes because when like, these bands have to know that man, there's going to be some people that hate this, but
Yeah.
that's what I respect so much about it because they're just going with what they want to do. I love that because that's where the most unique stuff comes from.
Yeah. So I know you're big into Doom and you said you're into black metal. So
Yeah.
like what do you primarily like what's your go-to? Doom?
My go-to is mostly bluegrass and country, believe it or not. But for the heavy stuff, yeah, I know. My heavy stuff is usually doom.
Okay.
I listen to so much music, and I can't keep up to the latest underground guys in their basement like I can with doom. But I do listen to a ton of black metal. We were talking about that Archetu album. Um, that again, the creativity it took. That their last album was based on Japanese folklore, I believe, and the first one's on Mayan. So they pull in these traditional and folkish instruments to compose the album alongside the distorted guitars and stuff. And that one last year was just mind melting. I wish I had heard it when it first came out. I
Yeah.
remember seeing like the promos leading up to it, but for some reason I never got to it. I think at the time I was still on that Big Ancients kick, which is still my favorite extreme album of the year last year. But God, that Urshetu one's close. It's
Yeah, and I
it's
think I think if you would have sent it over to me like last year, it might have made my like album of the year like list, like top
yeah.
10 or
I think it would have. But me too, for sure. Definitely top 10 but I didn't hear it till like January 1st. And
yeah.
then I was like, all right, I gotta find this. I got the vinyls for both of them, but God, that was a good one. Ulcerate last year, that was a darn good one.
Yeah, I was
Uh
just listening to that.
yeah, that dissonant death metal, Divinial Verdict is another one that's a lot like that. I'm finding I really like that dissonant death metal sound because
Yeah.
there's just so much musically, and they're not sitting there showing off doing guitar solos, but my gosh, to play that stuff, it's just
I interviewed a guy, he's from England, and I don't know if you know that Curtis DeWar from C Squared Marketing. He sent over I've been doing a couple interviews at like his bands, and one of them's called Phosphorus. I interviewed the guy and he's like, "Oh, I did an industrial album." And I'm like, "Nah, man, it's black metal all day." But it's killer. Like really good stuff. Debut album.
you know what? Let me look that up for a minute. I'm almost positive I have that.
Yeah, it's a
I know
black
I've heard
album
of it.
with like a purple V, I think, on it, like a triangle shape.
Phosphorus. No, that ain't. I know I've heard this. I'm gonna have to re-listen to it after this, so I know I've heard that.
Yeah, yeah. What do you stream on?
What do you mean?
Like when you go to like listen to a new album for the first
Oh,
time,
mostly
Bandcamp?
Bandcamp is where I'll usually purchase them. Usually I listen to the physical media if I have it, but if it's like the first time, I don't have it.
Yeah.
Um, Tidal or Apple Music.
Oh, I didn't know you had Apple.
Yeah, yeah. I've had that just because we had that Apple One plan and it
Yeah.
serves everything in the family. And my stepdaughter likes Apple a lot, so we do that. But with Clean and Sober Stoner and Monster Riff, we'll use the title links because those title links, if you link them in the articles that we write, those will send you to something where you can choose whether you go to Spotify or Apple or something like that. So we use it
Okay.
on with them.
Okay. Yeah, I use Apple Music solely, and it's to a point like I that's what all I listen to. I'll send you my profile so you can like,
Yeah, for sure.
steal my music or my playlists. I have to update them all. Like, I'm starting to look. I started figuring out how to become a curator on Apple, and I'm like gonna try to work towards that, but I'm just not there yet, you know?
That would be cool. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have never been one to make playlists because I'm typically like, do I got 45 minutes or do I got 20 minutes? I'll listen to an album or an EP. I've never, but especially with Doom, it's impossible. I mean, you got
Yeah.
15-minute long songs, you're sitting there like you might get through two songs before you got to go do something.
And sometimes in Doom, the album, it just requires you to listen to the whole album.
Oh, right. Especially when songs kind of flow in together and stuff. It's kind of like that. You know those old Meshuggah albums? There was like an
Yeah.
EP and an album where, yeah, they were cut up in the middle so you could go to different track numbers, but it was really all one long song. And that happens quite a bit, or at least things flow like that a lot. Whether
Yeah.
it be like synthy interludes and, sound effects and stuff, but it happens quite a bit.
I think like I know Scott just posted earlier about Elder, and I wrote to him back like I can't remember their album. It's the one that has like cream and it has like an eye on it. But
Oh, yeah, yeah. I know which one you're talking about. I'm bad with their album title. I'm bad with
yeah,
album titles in general anymore.
yeah, and I'm to the point like when I interview people, I'm like I'm a '90s dude. Everything is track numbers, one,
Right,
four.
same.
Yeah. Like,
I remember everything. What track is it? You can't tell me the title. I have no idea what it's called.
people are like, you ever hear Paranoid by Black Sabbath? And I'm like, I don't know. What number is it? Four? Like,
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
believe it's three on that one.
Yeah, I think it is. Iron Man's four.
Yeah, yeah. My brother, I had that album. My brother ended up scratching the hell out of that one. I was so upset because that was the only Doom album I had at the time, unless you count
Yeah.
Melvins and stuff like that. But oh man, he rocked a CD player and it cut the hell out of it with the eye, the lens of the reader, and I'm like, no, man.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. You can't just go get online and listen to it again. I was done. I didn't have it again. And
And
if I
that's
had,
like you always post about cassettes, and I'm like, God, these nostalgia. That's like painful nostalgia. That's not good.
I love them. I don't know what it is, man. I do know what it is. It's that sound that it gets over time when it degrades and it gets a little extra fuzzier and a little extra nastier. I love that sound. So yeah, it does it for me all the way.
I'm gonna have
Um,
to try that. It's been a
yeah.
long time since I listened to a cassette.
Salt Pig did something cool when he made the cassettes for his. He mastered them all randomly, so some were going to be fuzzier than others.
I don't know where I put it. I have it
Oh
somewhere.
yeah, you got it, didn't you? They gave
Yeah,
that care pocket. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that's a cool one. I went to look for that, and they had it just sold out when I saw it because I was like, oh, you son of a bitch. But damn, that's the coolest idea I've ever seen is randomly mastering them.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah. I
getting old, choking on my
honestly
own spit.
Salt Pig was like the first band I had just started. I was just my wife and I were talking one day. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna do this," and I just jumped on Instagram, and Salt Pig was the first one to like respond. So I just started talking to them, and that's how I got started.
No kidding.
Yeah,
So cool. They were one of the. Let's see. I remember times of my life by what music I was listening to at the time.
yeah,
So the funny story about Salt Pig, I know I heard them first on like heard them through whether it's Doom charts or something. I know I heard of them before like I saw them on Heavy Psych Sounds, and it seemed like the album was getting released again, right? So it was
yeah,
just getting re-released on a new label. But at the time, I'm sitting there like I remember things at times in my life based on the music I was listening to, and I listened to a lot of that Salt Pig record. So when things were happening, I'm sitting there like for like a 6 month period, I can't remember when things happened because of that album releasing twice. Basically, I'm like, wait, was it the first time Salt Pig released it or the second time Salt?
yeah.
So it's real weird. Like I'll remember whole years of my life. Like was that my Mastodon phase? Okay, then it was likely
Yep.
2004 between 2008. Something like that.
I remember it by concerts. Like, what year I went to see this band at this time. That's how I like mark my life.
I did that. That's how I do with COVID because I haven't really gone to many since then. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, the last one I saw was Black Label Society, EHG, and Crowbar was the last big one.
Oh
That
yeah.
would have been a theater. Besides, like downtown, we got like where all the metal bands come through, like Black Circle, tiny little venue. But a show of that size, that was the last one I went to.
Yeah.
So yeah, now that's not been a good mile marker. But I know what you mean. I used to do the same, especially in high school. Going to a show every week at the all ages venue. I could tell you just by what band we saw, what time of year it would have been.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't go to many shows in high school. I didn't get into it until like maybe like 2017 I started going to shows. That was about the
Oh,
time I started being able to afford shows.
right, that's the thing. Well, that and I don't see out of this eye in the
Okay.
center of it, so it's hard for me to drive a lot of the time, and to get down to where this area in Indy called Broad Ripple, where the Black Circle is. It's just madhouse parking and
Yeah.
drive. It's just impossible to get to off the. There's no good way off the interstate, so I don't go very much just based on that because it's just too much of a pain to
Yeah.
get and safely at that time of night because I can't see at night with the good eye I do have.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't like driving at night at all.
I hate it. I hate
Getting
it.
older.
Especially, it gets wet and shiny like it is this time of year. It's like, damn, everything looks like a mirror. I can't tell anything. So,
Yeah. So are you
yeah.
starting your own channel? Like
I think I'm going to hold that off for a couple years. I think I want to learn as much as I can from Scott because he's such a master at what he does.
yeah, he's really good.
I'm wanting to learn as much as I can there. And then next weekend, I got a friend coming up from Indy, Bram the Bard from Wizard Tattoo, to help me show me some of this recording stuff. So I'm going to see, where do I want to take it? Do I want to take it through the music, just finally get 25 years worth of riffs written down, make my own music, or do I want to keep doing the YouTube, the The writing, I do love the writing. The writing I'll never stop doing. I get nervous about YouTube for some reason. I don't know why, but I always get so hyped up about it. But I love it, So I'm
Yeah.
gonna see where I'm gonna take it, and then I want to learn as much as I can from Scott. I'll always keep contributing to his site,
Yeah.
but I do want to learn as much as I can, just because I mean he's so good at it, and
Yeah. He's really good at like just getting people's comfortability, it seems. Like
right,
just
yeah.
getting them to like spill.
And I've done a few of these. You're really good at it for one. I mean, right off the bat, I'm like, oh yeah, I've seen so many of your videos at this point and talked to you so much on different social media. I've felt comfortable, and this is the first time I felt real comfortable doing it.
Yeah.
When I or when I did the one with Bellwether Ritual, I came into it real nervous, but Mike was great. He had like a 15-minute period beforehand. We were just chit-chatting about gear, and before I knew it, I was comfortable as it could be. So I found that's a good idea. Like when guys kind of have that first cooling off period just to get
Yeah.
to know you. Love that idea.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
especially if you've had interactions with them like you and I have, then I kind of already know what to expect to a degree, going in.
I was lucky, like I traveled the world and like I was in the Marines and like always getting pushed somewhere else. So like I never really got nervous around people or
Yeah,
I just never really cared, you know? Like
yeah.
that sounded kind of rude. But like I just never like bought in we're all the same, you know?
Well,
And
I get it. Yeah, and thank
yeah.
you for your service, by the way.
Oh yeah,
That's
dude.
but yeah, man. That's a skill I wish I had. I come off as very jovial and very especially in a social setting. I'm really good at social settings, but inside, I get so worked up and I'm like, just a lot of people. One or two people, that's nothing. I could do that all day. But that's why I don't go to a lot of concerts too. I get into a big crowd of people and the people bouncing off each other. It's like, it's just
Yeah.
too much. I can't do
Yeah.
it.
There's certain shows now like I'm think like I'm getting a little too old. I know it's gonna be rowdy, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm such a dumbass. So last year I took my wife to her first Stoner Doom show, and it was Veilcast and Void King were the first two, which were great. Chill, what you can expect. Well, the closing band and the headliner was Whores.
Okay.
Been to a punk show in forever or a noise rock show in forever. I just thought, we're all older now. We're going to be calm. No, dude. Once
Yeah.
Hoarders got on stage, people were bouncing off each other. I mean, the BO went up dramatically, and
Oh,
we made it through about three-quarters of the gig. And I'm like, all right, honey, I can tell you're having, it's a bit much for you at this point. So we walked out, and she's like, my ears are still ringing, and we had earplugs in for sure.
yeah.
We're not going to risk that, especially with veil cased. Veil cased is how you say it. But my God, that was the loudest band I'd ever heard in my life.
Yeah. We went and saw my butt well, Dr. Destruction and I saw Dope Throne
Ooh.
in November, but it was 2 days after we saw Exodus, Havoc, and Dead Heat in
Oh my
Candy.
gosh.
And
Oh,
that was
Candy.
yeah. It was
Yeah.
like a ridiculously rough show, and everybody was crowd surfing. They had to be at least 400 pounds plus, and they were just like bodies raining down. And
Oh
we
my.
went to Dope Throne, and like Dope Throne was kind of rowdy, surprisingly. And I was like, this is nothing. Everybody else was like, this is out of control. And I was like, you guys haven't been to a thrash concert ever. But for a Doom crowd, it was out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, for Dope Throne has kind of got that they kind of got that mentality, I think. I mean, you ever look at their lyrics or even song titles? What's that one? Meth World
Yeah,
Incorporated something. I got like three of their albums on vinyl. I love what they are. I
yeah.
love that they are just, we're not hiding who we are. This is what we're into. Like I love that. That needs to exist on some levels, and Dope Throne fills a very good void out there that more rock bands I wish did still.
I like
But
their punk attitude too.
yeah, yeah, that's what I like. That's why I like so much about sludge. I'm very with my the way I look at music. I'm very punk. I don't like 20-minute guitar solo or shredding and stuff. I mean, I like a good as long as it's melodic. I'm weird on that.
Yeah.
But I'm very punk minded with that kind of stuff. So I'm more on like I came into Doom and stuff from the sludge side of things. So EHG and Crowbar and stuff like that, which were influenced more of by the Melvins, Black Flag, and I mean Black Flag I guess wrote the first sludge record anyways with
Yeah. Yeah.
side two of my war. But yeah, it's always been much more that way. Even when I was I got into metal mostly in thrash through Pantera, and then worked my way back through Megadeth and all that. But even then, I found that they came from the punk thing. So I was always real into that hardcore early 80s, not so much, Ramones and Clash and stuff, but more
Yeah.
like Black Flag and the Damned, Circle Jerk, stuff like that. Bad Brains, of course.
Yeah. I'm a huge punk rocker. Like I grew up on, I was really young when I got into like Maiden and Priest. And then I got into punk rock in like sixth grade till like maybe I was 18. And then I
Yeah.
went back and started going back into thrash because it made it an easy transition to thrash.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And I
especially
don't think I got
this.
into Doom until this past October.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, let's see, I would have been 15, I think, in 2001 when I first heard The Art of Thieves by High on Fire. And after that, I guess that would have been my first proper one. I mean, I always was a Melvins fan because I initially got into music through grunge because of my cousins, and I was real young, 6 years old or so. And then I just was always seeking something heavier. Even at 3 years old, Motley Crue would be on or Van Halen. I'd be like, Mom, turn it to that sound. I would try to make the
Yeah.
sound of a distorted guitar. I was always addicted to that. But when, 2001 hit and I start hearing the High on Fires and I start hearing, a little later, Electric Wizard, Come My Fanatics and stuff, that's when I'm like, that's my sound right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I searched for it high and low.
That's a hard one to pass on.
Yeah.
Electric Wizard.
Oh, I know. Well, the name alone, I'm like, what is this? I don't remember where I'd heard it. I think I initially got that from tape trading with somebody, and eventually I found a record store here in my old hometown in Indiana here, and they were able to find it. But I had to go to like 5 different record stores to find somebody who could import that at the time. It was people don't realize or remember how hard it could be to get underground music back in the day. It was impossible at one time.
I remember in 2001, I discovered this place in North Carolina. I was in the Marines and it was like a bunch of punks ran this record shop and they had everything underground, metal and punk. That was all they carried. And that like got me interested in a lot of newer sounds. Like that was when metalcore was just starting and it was good still. And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
like, I moved back home and like we didn't have the internet and like I just kind of got lost into what I had. Like back
Yeah, I
then
did
you
that
were
a lot too.
yeah,
Yeah,
you're only limited to what you owned.
yeah, especially with, I mean, the internet we did have, because my family was a little late getting the internet, but we just never really needed it.
Yeah.
But we had 56K up until 2007, so I wasn't on there. I'd try to download a song and I would, but it'd take me all day. So I'd go to like Century Media's website or Relapse or Rise Against or Rise Above, whatever it was back then, and I would like they would have like previews, or they would let you download a track from the upcoming one for free, that kind of thing. So I would do that to see what bands I wanted to go check out when I went to, a Karma Records, which was a local record shop, or FYE or something. Then I would check them out there if I had the ability, or I just buy them blind based on a track. Or even half the time, reading it out of a Decibel magazine.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, they said this was Doom. I'll buy it just based on that. And that's what my whole time working as in high school, every dime I made he went to gas to get me to a record store and the money at the record store or the venue I was going to.
I used to buy a lot of those like $3 compilations that would have like
Yeah.
50 bands on it for three
Yeah.
bucks.
Relapse had great ones, and so did Century Media back then. I'm
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
huge fan of a lot on Century Media nowadays. But back then, man, I remember the first time I heard Better Razors by Children of Bodom. I just, something that can be that, extreme and that melodic at the same time. That opened up Pandora's box for me as far as metal went. I went, Arch Enemy was another favorite for them.
Yeah.
I knew that their guitarist was in Carcass, and I just he has such a Michael Ament is one of those wizards. Could shred and make an emotionally soaring and impressive piece of playing at the same time, and that's hard to do.
Now, Heartwork is like one of my favorite records. So I'm like so pissed. Like, why didn't he stay there? Like, you guys made Heartwork. Like, you come on, just one or two more, man. Like,
I would like to see him with this new. I guess they put together a new touring lineup. Somebody I talked to on Instagram was saying he's going to go see Carcass. I think it was somebody in England said they were, and I was like, I had no idea that they were touring again. So I was wondering, but I know Arch Enemy has a new album coming out in May or June or something. I've always been a huge fan of them just because
yeah.
they were such a unique thing. Like I said, within that space of melodic death metal, they don't just do the I don't know. It's not just riff based. He plays a lot of leads that kind of almost sound like hair metal, but it works in that environment.
Have you ever listened to Carcass's guitarist has a rock band too called,
Mm.
I want to say it's called Firebird or Thunderbird. I'll have to look it up. It's been a long time. And it's like really good bluesy like rock.
I'll have to
Like
check it out. I love that kind of music. I mean, like Thunderbird Divine, that kind of stuff. Holy Roller, I love all that kind of
yeah.
stuff.
That Eric Clapton from Thunderbird Divine is like the coolest dude on earth too. He's such a nice guy if you've ever talked to him or
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Thunderbird Divine, the band. So I'm sitting there like, Eric Clapton, was he on that? Did they get
no,
on a
Eric
dip?
Kaplan.
Oh,
Kaplan.
Kaplan. Sorry,
Yeah.
man. My tongue to hear sometimes.
It's cool. I don't hear well either. But I've interviewed him like 3 or 4 times now, and like he's like the nicest guy on
Oh,
earth.
that's cool.
Yeah,
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 I that's why I've noticed it, specifically within Doom itself. Stoner Doom at least. There are it is the nicest scene I've ever come across. I
yeah,
mean, I've always been involved or been active in an underground scene in one way or another. But it's always Doom. Everybody's so laid back, and for the most part, and you don't have to worry about as many scammy type things going on and stuff. Um, People just seem to, you know, like I said, have each other's back. You scratch mine, I'll scratch yours. Kind of
yeah,
a very cope, just helpful scene in general. Everybody wants to see everybody succeed. It doesn't seem as competitive as some others I have. Politics don't get in the way, a lot of punk stuff can.
yeah, yeah.
It's been awesome. It's been such a cool experience getting to be more involved in that this past year.
I covered a Doom festival called the Descendants of Crom, like we have locally, and it brings in like just the regions bands. And I showed up did not knowing what to expect. Like I've never been to like a Doom, just a straight Doom show. And like I showed up and like there was no pit, there was no like pushing, no aggression. It was definitely different. And the second day I felt more comfortable, but I was surprised at how like welcoming and accepting, like there's no aggression, no like gatekeep.
Yeah.
It was nice, really nice.
I like it. I'm 38 years old now. I don't, especially if I go with my wife or if it's an all ages show. If my kid ever decides to go,
Yeah.
if she ever wants to go as my stepdaughter. But I I don't like the mosh pit stuff. I never have. I've always played guitar and bass, or well, played bass like a guitar. I only started playing bass the right way in the past year.
Yeah.
But I've always been a guitar player, so I've always been interested in the musicians, so I'll kind of be up there and kind of just hands behind my back, paying attention to what they're doing, seeing if I can learn something. If
Yeah.
I got, 5 or 6 yahoos around me, hardcore dancing and bumping into me, it's hard to pay attention. So yeah, that's always something I liked about Doom too. Is unless you're going to a High on Fire show or Buzz
Yeah.
or a
Yeah.
Weed Eater or something, but for the most part, it's usually pretty chill, especially if it's more of a psychedelic type band.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
like that. I
I
like that a
really
lot.
liked it. And I'd like to go to more.
Yeah, it is. It is. But there is sometimes that I have such fond memories of Ozfest because of how crazy the mosh pits got here in Indy, especially with like uh Arch Enemy and Mastodon at the time. Mastodon played such a killer set that like the whole center of the second stage was just it was wild. It's the only time I've ever seen anything like that.
Yeah. They're a great band.
They
Great.
are. They are. Another one of those bands where you just like I needed a freaking calculus degree to try to play this stuff.
Yeah. But I'm like you. I just sit there and I try to get as close as I can because I can't see. And then like I just stare at their fret hands. Like
Right. Yeah.
I picked up a guitar maybe like 2, 3 years ago and I suck real bad, which is okay. Like it's just about the journey for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But like you're just like you said, I'm just trying to pick up tips wherever I can. Like,
Well, I see that Jackson right. That thing is beautiful, man.
yeah,
The
I got a Jackson and then I got like a ESP. That's the only
Oh yeah, Eclipse.
yeah.
That's probably I say it's probably my next guitar I get's probably a banjo. But
I got one of those too.
hey, oh yes.
My banjo though is my grandfather's and it's like extremely old and like it's
Oh yeah.
busted up and they put it back together and yeah.
Yeah, that's something I'd hang in like a glass case and like don't kids can't touch this one. This is
Yep.
a relic, basically.
I have it in its case behind my speaker over here just because like I don't want to drop it or
Yeah, I got a guitar like that. It's just a 2001 Strat, and I've done some mods to it.
oh
But
yeah.
but it belonged to my cousin's grandfather who taught me guitar. He came along at such an important time in my life. I just quit football because I took such an interest in guitar. Hold on just a sec. That's gonna fall over. But I had just quit football, which I was really good at. So everybody hated me. None of my friends wanted to chill anymore.
Yeah.
So my cousin's grandpa, he would just teach me guitar. We'd go over there. We'd bring him a bottle of whiskey or some wine or something. He'd smoke his cigarettes and teach me guitar, old boogie stuff.
Yeah.
He actually used to play with the guy who wrote Jingle Bell Rock.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's just from a town south of where we lived. And anytime he was in Indiana, he'd just play with them. But yeah, so my first guitar riffs were, Ghost Riders in the Sky by Johnny Cash, Wipeout, stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then I'd go home and I didn't know that I needed a distortion box for distorted guitar. Like my first guitar was this guitar out of a J.C. Penney catalog. Didn't even have distortion or gain or anything. So
Yeah.
I'd go home and try to do these riffs, but I wanted to hear them fuzzy. So I heard that Link Ray used to cut holes in the
Tones.
speaker. Yeah, I did it. My dad was so pissed at me, man. I mean, you would have thought just shot the Pope right in front of him or something. Like he was so angry. He's like, I just bought this damn thing. But I mean, you never like that's how I learn how things work. That's how I learn how things are put together. I got to destroy shit to learn how it works.
That's exactly how I figure things out.
Yeah.
But
I
hey,